It's nice and breezy. Welcome to Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve with the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority. We're waiting for a moment for folks to log in. And we have one viewer. Welcome, two viewers. Hi everybody, you remember Phoenix?
Hello everyone.
So welcome to the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority, and we're at the lovely Coyote Valley Open Space Preserve, and we're here to present you Phoenix, a Phoenix's Curiosity Cabinet, featuring a curious look at creepy critters. Take it away, Phoenix.
Hey, good morning everyone. I'm glad you could join us this morning. I have brought a bunch of stuff to share with you guys today. Since we're in October, season of Halloween, figure we focus on things people lots of times think of as creepy, crawly creatures, but are actually really cool animals that are out here and have vital parts to play in our ecosystems. So I actually have not just preserved specimens today, but some live animals to get to share with you as well. So some of the live animals that I've got you can find around areas like this. Others are from other areas of the world. People think of creepy crawlies lots of times. The first thing they think of are things like insects. So we're going to start with some insects today. Now, my first insect is not from this area. It's from another area of the world. So can you see him on the screen? This is our Madagascar hissing cockroach. And like their name suggests, they're from Madagascar. And they do hiss, at least the males do. So if you can see any of these dots down his side, these are part of an insect called spiracles. And this is actually how insects breathe, is they move air in and out of those. And this guy can make a loud hissing sound when he feels scared or wants to show it's his territory by blowing air out of those spiracles. Now, a lot of people go, cockroaches, ew! But there's actually a lot of species of roaches in the world, and only a few of them are considered pests to people. Most of them, like this guy, just want to live out in the wild. He helps decompose things. But insects will have three main body parts. I'm going to try and flip him upside down real quick here. They've got their head, their thorax, that's where all the legs are attached, and their abdomen. And he kind of has this shield that goes over all those parts. We can tell this one's male because it has these two big bumps on the front of that shield. Only the males have that. And you can see him exploring around with his antennae there, trying to figure out what's going on. Now he's probably a little bit tired today because these guys are usually nocturnal. He's usually a lot more active at night. But he is a good example of an insect to start out with today. Does anyone have any questions on our hissing cockroach? Any questions coming through?
So I did discover we do have a little bit of a lag.
Okay, that's okay.
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, so I am going to put him back in his container. The end real quick again for anyone who logs in later. Now I do have some preserved here as well. And these guys are a little bit easier to see their body parts without, because they're not trying to crawl away from me. So I've got two examples of beetles that are in the scarab beetle family. So lots of times you see scarab beetles in ancient Egyptian art. And you'll see lots of times in the ancient Egyptian art, they'll be rolling the sun along with their hind legs across the sky. The scarab beetles in Egypt are actually a type of dung beetle. So they will collect up insect feces and droppings, compress them into a ball and lay their eggs in the center. This actually provides warmth for the eggs to develop in and some food, and they'll roll this ball along with their hind feet. So you'll see that. These two are not those species. These are different species. But there's a lot of related scarab beetles around the world. The shining one here is a green rose chafer beetle, and we also have a stag beetle here as well. So, can these be seen on the screen okay? Mm-hmm. But you can more clearly see their three body parts here. Their head, their thorax, and their abdomen. These are part of the defining features of insects, is they have those three body parts. Insects will all have 6 legs, and they're always attached to the thorax. And some insects will have wings. Beetles actually have modified wings where they have a wing case. Their outer side wings are adapted to be this hard case that will open up, and their wings that they fly will come out from those. So if you've ever seen a ladybug take off, for example, ladybugs in the beetle family, and or order of beetles. Beetles are one of the most numerous types of insects on Earth. There is numbers of species. There's huge amounts of beetles. For an insect in a different group that you might see around in the fall, we have a praying mantid. So sometimes you might see these out when I'm on the fall. I saw one a few weeks ago out on a hike. These will only live a season, so they hatch in the spring, and they'll grow throughout the summer, and in the fall they'll find mates, lay their eggs, and the eggs will overwinter and hatch again in the spring. These guys are great to have in your garden. They eat a lot of the things we don't want to eat our garden. In fact, you can even go to the garden store and buy praying mantis egg cases to put out in your garden to hatch them, and encourage them to be around. But like many predators, they have very large eyes, so they can see animals coming up. And these are ambush predators. They'll sit there camouflaging, being very still, waiting for something to go by, then they'll grab it and eat it. And lots of times you'll hear things about praying mantids eating their mates. That they found doesn't happen as much in nature as it does in captivity. It's more common if they're in captivity than out in nature, although they will sometimes still eat their mates, and that provides nutrients for the developing eggs. Okay, any questions about any of the insects so far?
We did have one question where somebody wanted to know about the cockroach.
Okay.
Is that the normal size?
That is the normal size of a full-grown Madagascar hisser. They get big. Okay. Now, related to, we've got arachnids, our spiders and our scorpions. Come over a little closer. Now, part of the difference between arachnids and insects, they're both part of arthropods, which means jointed foot or jointed leg. But within phylum Arthropoda, we have 5 different classes: insects, arachnids, crustaceans, millipedes, and centipedes. So we'll take some time to talk about the arachnids, because when people think of Halloween, they think of spiders and their webs. And I do have a preserved tarantula here to start today. And if you're lucky, if you're out hiking in the fall in open space areas, you might be lucky enough to actually see the tarantulas out and about. Tarantulas are usually nocturnal, but during the fall, the females and males will come out and go looking for mates. So sometimes you will see them crawling along the trail. These guys are they're harmless to people. They may look big and scary, but they don't want to bother you. Just let them crawl on their way. Enjoy observing them there on the ground, going about their business, and they're not going to chase you down or bother you or anything. And most spiders actually have important roles in the environment, keeping insects that might bother us and other pests down in numbers. Arachnids, unlike the insects that have 3 body parts, arachnids have 2 body parts. They have their abdomen, and their head and thorax are combined into one piece called the cephalothorax. And the cephalothorax is where all those legs will be attached. Now, I show my students a lot of times this, and I say, count the legs. And I either get 8 or 10 when people look at this specimen. Now, arachnids do have 8 legs. These 2 things up in the front that look like shorter legs are called pedipalps. And they use those to manipulate food and handle things. But those are not legs. Tarantulas are usually hairy. This is part of their defense mechanism, because if an animal leans down real close, they'll rub their back legs against their abdomen and send up these clouds of hair. Those tarantula hairs, if they get into mucous membranes, your eyes or nose, sting and are irritants. It's a real it discourages predators from wanting to have this guy for lunch. Female tarantulas usually live far longer than the males. Males be 5-6 years. Females in some species can live up to 20, depending on the type of tarantula. Now, I also have an orb weaver spider. So this, you can see, is a little bit different body type than our tarantula. Longer, thinner legs, definitely less hairy. So people, when they think of spiders, think of webs. Well, all spiders will spin silk. Not all spiders make webs. So a spider like an orb weaver will create a large web for insects to fly into. And some of those strands of the web are actually reflective in certain wavelengths of light, so insects don't see them, and they'll fly into them and get entrapped. And most of the spiders will either know which strands are not sticky to step on as they go to catch their prey, or some of them will even have stuff on their legs that kind of dissolve the stickiness so they won't stick to their own web. Now, tarantulas will spin silk, but they don't make webs to catch their prey. They will just hunt them down and catch them. They're ambush predators. But tarantulas live in the ground, and they will line their burrows with silk. So different spiders have different hunting techniques. So best thing to do if you see a spider, just leave it be. It's helping to keep the insects that you don't want around. If you see a spider in your house and you're like, ah, because I know some people really don't like spiders, you can always just let it go outside as well if you don't want to share your house space with it. Spiders can be in some very unusual shapes as well. Got this little very strange shaped spider here as well.
We do have a question about how do big tarantulas in this area get? Because we have heard that in other parts of the world they can get a lot bigger.
Yes, so the question is, how big do tarantulas get in this area? So the tarantulas that we have around here are native California tarantulas. The body size is probably about like this, and their legs would probably expand to about like this. So they're relatively small for tarantulas. Other areas of the world, they do get very large. The largest one I know of is the Goliath bird-eating spider, which leg span is going to be about like this. And like its name suggests, it will catch and eat birds. Although those actually aren't its main source of food. Although they have definitely been documented to catch birds in those areas of the world. The tarantulas we have around here are going to go for much smaller prey, primarily insects and things like that. Okay, another arachnid relative, scorpions. So they have the cephalothorax in the abdomen, just like the spiders do. Now, this is not a tarantula from around here. We do I'm sorry, not tarantula. Scorpion. This is not a scorpion from around here. The scorpions we have in this area are much smaller. Now, scorpions will catch their prey with a sting on the end of their tail. And these claws in the front are actually modified pedipalps. So, like our spider's pedipalps here, these are ones that evolved to have more claws to hang on to food. So these are modified pedipalps, not modified legs. Cool fact about scorpions is most of them will glow under UV light. So if you shine, I can't really demonstrate here because we're in the bright sun, but if I took this into a dark room and shined a UV flashlight, it would glow kind of yellow-green. And in fact, sometimes scorpion researchers in the desert will use this to find the scorpions at night. They'll go around with their UV flashlights trying to make them light up to see them. So the other relatives that we would have to insects and spiders is there would be crustaceans. Now, most of your crustaceans you're going to find out at the oceans, your crabs, your lobsters, shrimp, but we do have one crustacean that lives around here that you probably even have in your own backyard. Let me see if I can find one of them to pull out of here in my life in a rotting log habitat I brought with me today. So see if I can find any of the ones I'm looking for hide. Aha, I got him. Now, most of you have probably caught these as kids. Can you see that guy okay? Our roly-polies. So this is our next creepy crawly, and these are not bugs or insects. These are crustaceans. They're more closely related to lobsters and crabs and things like that. They breathe through gills, so that's why they like moist areas, like under logs and stuff. And they're going to be decomposers. They're going to help break things down. Some species will crawl into a ball when they're scared. Some of them won't. You sometimes hear these called pill bugs. Some parts of the world they'll call them wood lice, but they're not lice like you get in your hair. They're totally different type of creature. But these are part of a larger group called isopods. And there are marine isopods as well. But these are land ones. Easiest way to find these guys is to look under logs and rocks in moist areas. I'll put him back in his habitat here. He's like, got awfully bright and sunny all of a sudden. Was under a nice wet log here. Now, if you do go looking for things under logs and rocks, some important things to remember. You're always going to, I'll use this as an example. We'll pretend this is a rock. You're always going to lift it, put your fingers here, don't stick them under where you can't see. Put them on top and roll it towards you. That way, if there's anything like snakes, scorpions that you don't want to come towards you and they're going to run away, this way they will run away from you. You know, and after you look and see what there is to see, carefully put it back. This is the roof of somebody's house. And if you turn over a rock or a log and leave it exposed, it disrupts the whole mini ecosystem that was under there. Things that were kept moist are going to dry out. So we always, when we go exploring nature, want to leave things the way we found them and be very gentle with the area, because this is the home of a lot of creatures. Do we have any other questions coming up so far?
We do have somebody asking if aren't crawdads crustaceans also?
Yes, crawdads are crustaceans as well. So they are an example of a freshwater crustacean. So the last two groups of arthropods are centipedes and millipedes. And many times people will cluster those together, but they are two different groups with very different life styles. So this top one is an example of a centipede. The bottom one is an example of a millipede. Centipedes are predators. They catch other animals to eat. They have a venom to catch their prey. They have, even though centipede means 100 legs, none of them actually have 100 legs. They have 2 legs per body segment. So if you want to know how many legs a centipede has, count these little rings and multiply by 2. They tend to be very flat, so they can fit into tiny areas. And they move fast because they have to catch their prey. Millipedes, like this guy down here, are herbivores. They're decomposers. They're helping to decompose leaves and decaying vegetation. They do not have a venomous bite. However, some millipedes are poisonous. The difference between venomous and poisonous. Venomous is if it bites you and you get sick, it's venomous. If you bite it and you get sick, it's poisonous. Poison is ingested. So you can pick up a millipede and it's not going to hurt you, but don't eat it. Some of them will let off some smells to deter predators. Most millipedes don't taste very good to a lot of predators. Now, while millipede means 1,000 legs, none of them actually have 1,000 legs. You count the body segments and they have 4 legs per body segment. And you would count them and multiply. And they are much rounder and slower moving than the centipedes. Because decaying vegetation doesn't move that fast. They don't have a need to go that fast. If they're scared, sometimes they will roll into balls with their legs and their softer center parts kind of tucked in. Now, I have some live millipedes to share with you today. So I will get them out of their habitat and bring it back over here. So I just have to find where they are hiding in their habitat.
Ron has a question. He
Yes.
says that he's never seen them in our area. Are they indigenous?
Millipedes?
Yes.
Yes, we do have species of native millipedes here, which I can tell you about in a few moments. The ones I'm going to show you are not native to this area. These are from another area. And they are doing a very good job of hiding right now. Ah, there's one of you. Okay. So this millipede I've got is a little bit larger than I've seen most millipedes in this area. Well, this is actually probably about the same size. This is the smaller of the 3 I've got in that container. You see a lot of millipedes, like if you go to a damp area like the redwood forest. Some of them are black with yellow stripes that I've seen there. I have at Harvey Bear Ranch on a night hike for Santa Clara County Parks, we found a bunch of millipedes crawling around one point. But they're going to be nocturnal, and they're going to want to stay where it's damp and cool. But you can.
He's not going to bite you?
He is not going to bite. Millipedes do not bite. So they are safe to hold gently. Now, sometimes they do let off musk, so it's a good idea to wash your hands after handling them. But this guy's feeling pretty mellow right now.
How long have you had this one?
These ones I've only had for about a week.
Okay.
So this habitat I recently got. I have had these life in a rotting log habitats many times over the years, and so generally I keep one going until all the animals have lived out their natural lifespans, and then I will replace it with a new one. Oh, so he actually felt a little nervous. You can see on my hand there's a little bit of liquid there. That's some of the liquid that they let off. He's probably trying to find he was hiding comfortably under a piece of wood when I found him, and he's probably wondering where it's gone. Hey, any questions about the millipedes?
What are their lifespans?
It depends on the species. Many of them can live up to 5 or 7 years. So if you do have them in captivity, this is not a short-term investment. Now, I don't always know how long mine are going to last when I get them because I don't know how old they are when I got them. They could already be several years old by the time they get to me. But this one's a lot smaller than the other ones that I got, so this one's probably a little younger if I had to guess. And you can see him reaching around trying to find stuff to climb on, as he's kind of searching there. Now, also my life in my rotting log habitat, I've got one more large insect in there I'm hoping to find, but they tend to hide at the bottom a lot. So let's see if I can find one. And I have to keep this moist. So there's these chunks of rotting wood in here. This is part of their food. And when I've had these habitats, over the course of a year, all this will get eaten down to soil that's maybe a couple inches. They do a good job of decomposing this. But they also get fed vegetable scraps and oatmeal flakes and other food. So they have a variety of foods to keep them healthy. Because if you're going to have something like this in captivity, you need to make sure all their needs are met, like they would be in the wild. Now, the ones I'm looking for now are called best bugs, and they like to really, really burrow down. So I usually have to dig around a little to find where they're hiding. Oh, found a bigger millipede. So got a little bit bigger guy here. Oh, there you are. Put all their roof back here. And little hiding spots. And I have to mist this every day with water to make sure it stays nice and moist for them and they don't dry out. But this is a bess bug, B-E-S-S. Sometimes they are also called patent leather beetles. So, like all beetles, when these guys start out, they start out looking like grubs, like larvae, and they'll live like that for a while before metamorphosing into adults. Pretty big. He is good sized. And there's a couple of these living in my habitat. But you can see he does have some pretty good sized mandibles for chewing wood there. And you can see his big fluffy antenna for sensing his environment. So we'll let this guy go back to his nice shady logs here. Ron would like to know if these are from our area. They are not. Somebody's rolling over that way. Yeah, my owl pellets are making an escape. I will retrieve them. So, started off with a lot of our insects, arachnids, millipedes, and things like that. But we have a lot of other animals that sometimes people think of as creepy animals. Now, all the animals that we've looked at so far, especially if you're a kid watching at home, reach around and feel your back, the middle of your back. Do you feel any of the kids out there? If you feel there's a bone running up through our back, our spine. Now, all animals have spines. So the ones we've talked about so far are invertebrates, animals without spines. So our insects, our arachnids, our millipedes, they all have exoskeletons, but they don't have any bones inside. The rest of the animals we'll be talking about are all vertebrates. They have backbones. So, lots of times, you hear people talk about frogs around Halloween. How are we doing on time? 10:30. Awesome. So, I have got some preserved life cycle of a frog here. Amphibian means dual life. And most amphibians will start out their life in the water as some sort of little tadpole or larva. And in the case of these frogs, eventually they grow first hind legs, then front legs, and then their tail will shrink and go away. When they're larvae, when they're tadpoles, they breathe through gills. They eat vegetation. As they mature into frogs, they grow lungs, they start breathing air, and they're going to become carnivorous. So they're going to start eating other creatures. So these are our life cycles here. And we also have toads. Now I don't have a toad to show you. So toads and frogs are very similar. The frogs are either going to be in genus Rana or Hyla. Hyla is the tree frogs. Rana is like the big bullfrogs. Toads are genus Bufo. So part of the quick differences between frogs and toads is frogs usually will have smoother, wetter skin. Toads will usually be a little dry and bumpier. Now some people say, oh, don't handle a toad, you'll get warts. You cannot get warts from handling a toad. Warts are caused by a virus. But some of those bumps on the toad do have defensive properties. There's two big bumps on a toad's head right behind their eyes called the parotoid glands. And those produce a poison that make toads taste bad. Most predators don't want to eat a toad because they just don't taste good. Now, some animals have figured out ways to get around this. Like, for example, raccoons that catch a toad will just peel off that part of the skin with the glands and eat the rest of the toad anyways. But most things don't like to eat toads. Both frogs and toads will have their tongue attached to the front of their mouth instead of the back. So our tongue's anchored in the back of our mouth. Toads and frogs, it's the front, so they can flop it out like this to catch their food. Although some frogs, like I've seen bullfrogs, will just grab things with their mouth, take their front feet and just shove it in their mouth. I've seen a bullfrog eat a whole mouse that way once. It was really pretty impressive. But they will. Many of them do have sticky tongues to help them catch their prey. Now here is a cool fact about frogs. When you see a frog swallow, they'll close their eyes, kind of go like this. Can't quite do it because I'm not a frog, but you see them kind of close their eyes and squinch their eyes down. Frogs use their eyeballs to help them swallow. So basically they close their eyes and they push down with their eyes on the roof of their mouth to help shove the food down their throat. So it's really cool to watch if you ever get a chance to see that. Frogs usually will have a little bit more webbing in between their toes to help them swim than toads do. Toads will actually get up and walk sometimes instead of jumping. So sometimes if you see a toad on the trail, you'll see them just getting up and walking along on all four feet. Other amphibians that we have around the area are salamanders and newts. They like to be in wetter areas. So you're probably not going to find newts out in an area like this, but if you go to where it's moister like the redwood forest, you'll see them going around. And California newts, which we have around here, they're brown on the back and they're orange on their belly. And this is a signal that they're poisonous to eat. And they will actually even lean up to show predators they've got a bright orange stomach as a way of discouraging things from eating them. So, yeah, don't eat a California newt. Bad idea. So those are amphibians. Now we also have a lot of reptiles. The one that people usually think of most quickly are snakes. So I don't have a live snake today, but I do have a snake shed. This is not from a local snake. This is from a friend's boa constrictor who gave me a shed so I could teach with it. But we can still see a lot about our snakes, and we have a lot of different native snakes in the area. Everything from harmless gopher snakes to the venomous rattlesnake. Now, way to tell the difference between a gopher snake and a rattlesnake, best way is to look at the shape of the head. Gopher snakes their heads are very tube-like. Rattlesnakes have a very triangular shaped head. Rattlesnakes do have the rattle, but once in a while rattlesnakes will lose their rattle. So that is not 100% sure way to tell. Best thing is, if you don't know what kind of snake it is, just enjoy it from a distance and let it go on its way. They're going to help keep the local rodent population down. They've got an important role to play, but we don't need to go pick them up. Gopher snakes sometimes will engage in mimicry or imitating rattlesnakes to protect themselves. Their coloration is very similar, and sometimes gopher snakes are known to kind of try and squish their head down a little to make their head look a little bit more rattlesnake-like, and they'll even shake their tail in dried leaves to try and imitate the sound. Because if they can convince an animal that they're a rattlesnake, they're more likely to be left alone. But a lot of people look at snakes and go, "Ooh, slimy!" Snakes are not slimy. They actually have very dry skin, so their skin feels very much like this shed I'm holding. They're very dry, very scaly. And snakes have two different types of scales. There's these scales on the back, but these long, thin ones on their belly called scutes. And this is how snakes are helping to move. Is these scutes, as they move their muscles, will help grip the ground and help propel them along. And unfortunately, I do not have the head on this particular molt. But if you have a snake molt like this, from the head, they actually have clear scales that go over their eyes called spectacles that you can see in their shed as well. So our snakes have a lot of jobs to do out there. They're actually very cool animals. And snakes also smell using their tongue. So they will stick out. If you ever see a snake go, they're smelling. In the roof of their mouth, there's an area called the Jacobson's organ. And they'll stick their tongue down, and the chemicals that make up the smells, the molecules in the air, will stick to their tongue. They'll put their tongue up at the Jacobson's organ, and that will send the signals to their brain to tell them know what they're smelling. Snakes can feel vibration on the ground to hear. They don't have external ears like we do, but they will pick up vibrations on the ground. Any questions about any of the snakes? Okay. Other reptiles we do have are western fence lizards. Now again, I don't have a lizard, but I do have a shed, because lizards will shed their skin as well. But we can see the scales are a little bit different shaped on this than on the snake. But fence lizards are a common lizard. If you come out to a preserve like this, and warm weather, you're going to see fence lizards everywhere if you're looking. They like nice, warm, dry areas like this. And some scientists have noticed that there's something in the western fence lizard's blood that actually helps control Lyme disease. There's something that is in the lizard blood that will kill off that particular disease. So for a while, scientists were even wondering if that's why we had less incidence of Lyme disease here than back east because of that. Although it has become more prevalent out here over time. So lots of cool reptiles around for creepy crawlies. Now I've got two more creepy animals to talk about.
About 5 minutes.
Yep.
A little bit more.
Okay, so I'll touch on these real quick. One is owls. So lots of people think of owls for Halloween, and I definitely don't have a live owl. In fact, I don't even have any bones or feathers, because bones and feathers of raptors are protected. So I don't have any of those, but what I do have are owl pellets. So owls cannot digest the fur and bones of the animals they eat. So they'll get squeezed into a tight little ball called an owl pellet. And I've got one here that's starting to fall apart a little bit, but you can kind of see what they look like. Can you get that on camera at all? and they regurgitate these. They throw them up. And so if you find a place owls have been nesting, sometimes you can find these owl pellets, and you can actually order sterilized owl pellets online to take apart for education in classrooms. So I've done that with my students a lot of times. Matter of fact, these bones are all part from owl pellets my students and I have dissected in class. But you can see the bones of the creatures they've been eating. In this case, lots of mice. And scientists like to look at the owl pellets because it tells us not only what the owls are eating, it can also tell us information about rodent populations in an area. Rodents are small, they're nocturnal, they're hard to find. But by looking at the owl pellets and what the owls are eating, that tells us what sort of rodent populations are around as well. And owls fly ultra quiet. So they've got a fringe on their wing that helps kind of dampen the noise as they hunt. And the last animal I'm going to touch on, because I know we're running shorter on time, are bats. So our creepy mammal of the day. Bats are awesome. The bats we have around here help keep the mosquito populations down. Other areas of the world, fruit bats help pollinate and replant seeds. Bats are awesome creatures. And we've got limited time to talk about them, but I encourage everyone to go learn about bats because just so many fun things to learn about bats. They are mammals, like we are, and the group that bats are part of are Chiroptera, which means hand wing. So a bat's wing, if you picture our hand, our fingers being really, really long, with skin stretched between them, that's a bat wing. So those bones running through a bat's wing are the same bones as our finger bones. And they have those adapted to fly. I think we're running down on time. Are there any last questions coming through?
There was one question about how do you make your yard more lizard friendly?
Having places for them to hide. So lots of times for lots of wildlife in your yard, you don't necessarily want a pristine yard. Having hiding places where the animals have places for safety, can hunt for their food, having sources of water, those are all going to be things that make things wildlife friendly. And if you want to learn more about that, I believe the National Wildlife Refuge actually has a program. National Wildlife Organization has a program about how to make your yard a wildlife sanctuary. Some people will even register their yards as wildlife sanctuaries and follow the procedures that they've got to make it friendly for wildlife.
Michelle would like to know if the rattlesnake population is healthy in this area.
As far as I know it is, but I would have to look that up to be sure. Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. I'm Phoenix of Phoenix's Curiosity Cabinet. You can find me on Facebook under Phoenix's Curiosity Cabinet, or my webpage is phoenixescabinet.com. I have all sorts of hands-on classes for all ages that I offer. Right now they're mostly online, but in other times I also do stuff in person. So check it out and come check out the awesome preserves that Open Space helps manage. We've got a real treasure here and everyone should get out and enjoy those. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and please go to www.openspaceauthority.org for more information about future programs. Thank you very much, Phoenix. You're
welcome.
This is a genuine pleasure. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.